folks, and welcome to the SCV Leadership and Business Solutions podcast that we do weekly. And we want to wish you a very happy New Year's. I'm Paul Raggio.
And I'm Lisa Raggio, and we are happy to be here today and tomorrow and in the future to help you find your way through this pandemic. And this is going to be an opportunity for us to share with you some of our experience in the last year and a half with starting our own business, and then our journey through the pandemic and lessons learned. So we're looking forward to having our conversation with each other and having you join us, and always getting your feedback on that.
We jumped into this venture in 2019, and I had moved out here. I had recently retired from working with a large federal government contracting corporation and running multiple businesses. And I didn't want to retire. And so in coming out here, I had approached Lisa. She was in her own consulting business at the time, and just started throwing some ideas out there, maybe what we could be doing together as a business. And so one of the things you always want to think about, especially approaching a family member doing a business, is can you get along doing it? And so, I mean, we spent a lot of time probably in the early months before we really committed to each other to start a business, talking through our approaches to it. And I don't know, Lisa, maybe you can share some thoughts on that.
Yeah, thank you. What I remember about that time was I did have my own consulting business, and I was consulting with 3 nonprofits and doing executive director work with a local and a national, and then creating a leadership program, scaling a best practice program actually with Leadership Pasadena. And the engagements that I had were with nonprofits that were really open to looking through the lens of best business practices. And I think my learning in my years of nonprofit experience before that was I really wanted to be working with nonprofits, not for them. I wanted to take the knowledge I had gained and learned and subject matter expertise in, but really look at it from a business point of view. And this is where we've talked about this, Paul, and I've shared with some other of our clients. Nestle and Disney, for me, almost a decade there, were very good teachers in regards to best business practices. And so I found that spot, that niche where I had a cross-sector approach and I could work with these organizations. However, what I would always focus on is long-term impact and sustainability. And I realized that personally, I wasn't doing a good job of long-term impact and sustainability for myself. And I did have some health issues that came up. And it was at the same time when, what you were observing in me and assessing for yourself and how you can take your knowledge and serve. And I think it was the perfect timing for me to reflect and say, something, I haven't done a good job of thinking about my own personal long-term impact for my family, for living my values, for my priorities, and for sustainability. And so I looked at what we could do together, and that was formed. And I do remember what was important to us. While we are a franchisee of Action Coach, the largest business coaching company in the world, it was really important for us that we defined who we were first. What was our purpose in creating One True North? What was our vision? What was our mission? And what were our points of culture? So I think that'd be a good time to, hit it back over to you in regards to that process.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time just thinking through first, what is it that inspires us to do something like this? I mean, we talked to a lot of business owners, and there's risk anytime you go into a business. Why are you doing it? Why are you choosing this instead of just getting a job? You have less responsibility, you have less stress. And so we had a discussion over why we're both doing this. And part of our background is always giving back to the community. That's been ingrained in us from both our parents, and our older brother too holds true to that philosophy. So that's something that really resonated with us. How can we do that? And using our skill set and our experience in being able to do something that's going to be impactful for the community. So we landed on, first we talked about consulting in some form or fashion, and then we started doing some research. And this is a great way to convey to the audience, the importance of really taking some time to think through what is it that you're going to deliver in terms of your services or products, and how is it related to your own why and why you're in the business. So we looked at some of our own past experiences with how we were approached in terms of leadership growth and knowledge, skills, and abilities, and how that was taught to us. I had a lot of experience with a peer advisory group. I was in one for 9 years and found it absolutely essential to my leadership ability and working with multiple companies. So we started looking at a franchise called Executive Forums and to see if that would be a right fit for us. And we fell upon Action Coach, which was another franchise. I think we spent maybe 2 or 3 months doing our due diligence, Lisa. I mean, we read the documentation associated with it. We did a lot of online research about its own reputation and some of the problems they may have had, but also some of the successes. I think we end up calling maybe 8 to 10 franchise owners and really talk to them about what they felt were the strengths of the company, as well as some of the areas that were weak. And then we finally made a decision that the points of culture that Action Coach has were very much aligned with what we believe to be valuable in starting a business. So all told, it probably took us 4, maybe 5 months before we finally decided, okay, we're going to start a business. And our intention at that time, at the start of the business, was to buy a franchise. And then we had to go through the business development process with the franchisor and negotiate a contract with them. And that took another maybe month and a half to 2 months to do that. And then you had a commitment to go into a training program with them. And as soon as you were through the training program, then you become certified under their process in terms of being able to be a business coach at large. So what are some of your reflections on the training we went through with Action Coach, Lisa, and how it really helped us develop our own vision, mission, purpose statements, and understanding our whys?
Well, first, one of the things when I think about the training, I really do think about you and I both taking the DISC behavior assessment. And that's something that we're able to administer now to our clients. And it's where we start actually with every one-on-one coaching engagement, because it is so illuminating in regards to behavior, motivations in a natural and adaptive state, which is more work-driven. And that, just looking at it visually, they were able to put it up on the wall and see that we really were a very perfect combination in regards to our DISC profile. And we'll leave that a mystery for anybody who follows up and takes us up on our offer for a free business diagnostic. You get to find out what our DISC is. But that was illuminating. And I think the other thing I really realized during that training was I heard this phrase years ago at a high performance academy workshop that I went to, and they were talking about common sense is not common practice most of the time. And when we went through the training, what I thought of is I think the genius of Action Coaches, the level in which they've created all of this intellectual property and the ability to very quickly be able to assess an organization and then have a system that can be used to help that to help that gap or that pain point that that business has. It was the levels in which they just documented everything in regards to a best practice system approach. And that was, I think, the most powerful thing to me. And I'll be honest with you, a couple of other powerful things during that training was I was really mindful of, as Paul knows, there was another woman who was in the training with me, and I thought, okay, what it is that I was mindful of developing, and Paul knows that we work on leadership development specifically for women. We have something under One True North that's called Women Empowering Women in Leadership. I was mindful of the storytelling that came about
Hmm.
regarding why people had chosen to be a franchise owner and to be a business coach. And I know that they were intentional, and it was, I think the second or third day in the training where we were really able to dig deep, and we had been and the other thing I remember, Paul, is, and you can talk about this compared to boot camp. I mean, I remember thinking as a civilian, I thought we were talking about 12 to 15-hour days. And they were physical and mental. They wrapped it all up. And I know they had a method to their magical madness, but it was intense. And the outcome was that we felt very developed, very trained. We had our own unique experience up until that point. It gave us something in which would enhance what we're able to do. And as you say, part of what it is that we're able to do because of being part of a global community is we're coached regularly. If we wanted to, quite frankly, we could be coached every single day. You could pick up the phone, get on a call, and be coached every day. But we have a community, and they've come through on that in regards to being a community for us. And so they've been a right fit for us, for sure. What do you remember about the training?
Yeah, I too remember the intensity of it. It really did start at 6 in the morning and often went until 10 at night. You would take your meal breaks while you're in the group together. So the conversations about how best to apply some of the strategies and practices that were part of the certification process dominated for well, I was there 14 days. So, I mean, just the fact that you're in a group that has such a knowledge base and best business practices. They're in 81 countries. They have over 1,000 coaches, and that's one of the advantages of this franchise that we have is that you have the ability to tap into just a huge volume of not only intellectual property and content developed by Action Coach, but very relevant contemporary data coming from other coaches that are servicing other businesses at all levels, both small, medium, and large. And so it really is a great place to be in terms of a business going forward, and then having offerings that are going to help our clientele. We're absolutely confident that we'll be able to help our clientele develop solutions to challenges that they have.
Yeah.
So,
And I
go
think
ahead.
after that too, when we came back and then we got solid on again, we could have just stayed in the action coach and having that be as a franchisee. That's how we only deliver our business. But I think also when we came back, we were inspired by looking at what we could do regarding leadership and leadership development. And part of the work that I had done with Leadership Pasadena and scaling that best practice leadership program, and specifically for post 9/11 veterans in the military to civilian leadership transition,
Mhm.
being a part of Leadership Pasadena, quite frankly, and being a part of the board of directors of Leadership Pasadena, in which we researched other best practice leadership programs and why they're best practice. I think we also then were able to have the conversation of, okay, we want to define ourselves as well, because One True North is one part business coaching, and we have that and deliver it through Action Coach. And the other part is leadership development. And Paul and I coming together, and with his 26 years of military experience, with his then post that in leading business units and Chenega, an international organization, then I knew with my program development experience and what I was able to learn in regards to program development, certified program development, scaling it, designing it, delivering it, we really looked at this valley, Santa Clarita Valley, of the potential that it has. I've lived up here, our family's lived up here for 19 years. We've been very happy living in Santa Clarita Valley. We were in Burbank and Glendale before then. And I've experienced firsthand and have researched many other leadership programs. And up here, Santa Clarita being the third largest populated area in Los Angeles, and we have a sharp growth trajectory. Albeit I know that there's been some curbing with the pandemic, we still are going to be growing a lot. And so Paul and I get excited too about all the things that we can be developing for this community. And it brings me back to, once we were clear on that, here's what One True North, what we envision it to be. But, let's go back and just share a little bit in regards to why we chose One True North. Um, and then, we share with our clients too, when some of them are on the journey of either establishing or refreshing their commitment statements, which are their vision, mission, purpose. We always say it took us 4.5 months, and we've known each other a long time as brother and sister. But that was our own journey of figuring out who we are, what we do, where we're headed, and how we serve. So, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, in navigational terms, One True North is really important. Stemming from the military, you have magnetic north, grid north, and then you have One True North, which is really how the axis of the Earth points to the North Star. And what we have found over times in leadership, sometimes you deviate from One True North, and it may mean you make a mistake, or sometimes it's purposeful. And it's a struggle to get back to One True North, and that's the pathway that you want to head to seek your own success. So that's really how we came up with the name. We thought about it a lot. We thought, okay, is this something that's going to resonate not only with us and have some meaning to us, but can we use it in some shape or fashion in terms of branding with clientele and who we want to appeal to as our target market? And we certainly have found it to be true. We went through a process to do that. As Lisa said, it took 4 months, but we put together a focus group and we threw out names to them too. We threw out draft vision statements after vision statements after mission statements and mission statements, and took some time to really put some thought behind why we're doing what we're doing, and then ultimately coming together with 4 purpose statements, that 3 of them you can see on our website, and in our marketing collateral. When we put that out, you'll be able to see the 4th one. But it really defines where we're going, why we're going there, gives definition to our vision statement, and really how we're going to do that through our mission statement. There's a lot of important stuff there that you can find on our website that are great examples of a process that we went through to finally get to what we call our commitment statements. And what rounds out the commitment statement are our points of culture. We have 14 of them. You don't have to have that many, but many of you talk about them as being statements that represent your values. And when you put these together, we always encourage you to look at 4 constituencies. First, yourself. What's important to yourself in terms of values for a business? Second, what's important for your team in terms of values and them being a part of the business? Third, what's important to your clientele in terms of values that they want to see coming from your business? And then fourth, what's important to your community and the contributions you're going to make to the community? So that's all part of this. This is starting a business and setting it up. And we don't want to ignore the fact that we spent a lot of time with a lawyer, Carl Kanowski, initially, in talking through what type of organization or business we should have. And then even documenting the relationship Lisa and I have, even though we're siblings, it's important to document what the partnership looks like in legal terms. So there's not only an understanding between us, but if family members were involved, that there would be an understanding of how we are actually organized to do business as a partnership. And then we went to Brian Martin of Martin Advisors, the CPA, talked to him about what the appropriate way to set up would be, and especially in terms of tax liability from the business standpoint. And most important that we see a lot of businesses struggle with is we developed our first budget and really thought through, okay, how are we going to make money? What expenses are we going to encounter while doing this? We made a leap of faith and entered into a 5-year lease for office space, which we thought would be appropriate for a coaching environment. So all of these things had to be plotted out before we fully committed to this venture. And then we had the chamber do the ribbon cutting ceremony, and that was in July of 2019. What are
Right.
some
Well,
of your thoughts on that?
that's also important. I mean, it leads me up to what we know to be true in regards to community engagement. And our training was, as Paul said, our parents were exemplary in regards to not only sharing with us what their commitment to was to the community, but they lived it. So our dad was involved with the school board for several years. He was the president of the school board when I graduated from high school, so able to hand me my diploma. He served on the city council for 8 years. He served as mayor of Glendale for 2 terms. And then he headed up the Burbank Glendale Pasadena Airport Authority. And all that time, our mom, then, in addition to that, was leading business, BPW, business professional women's groups, Seroptimus International of Glendale, hospital organizations. So and then their church, leaders in their church in regards to being a part of the fundraising committee. So they lived it too. And we realized that if we're going to be best practice, we also had to decide about becoming engaged with our community and what we can do to be serving. So we joined the chamber, we joined VIA. I know Paul joined his groups that he did. We each looked at what groups for now, what we're going to start off with. I joined Synergy Networking Group. And so we were definitely looking at ways in which we could learn more about the community, even though our family had been here for almost 20 years. All of my work had been in the other valleys. So this was an opportunity for me to get to know the community better, the Chancellor Circle better. We got to economic workforce and development and going to College of the Canyons. I would say after that, we really did our due diligence too in immersing ourselves with the community and setting up meetings like coffee convos and ask people about who they were and what they did and how they did it. It was our way of assessing the community and seeing where the real needs were. Because that's another thing that you want to do as a business owner or organizational leader. And this comes from my experience working with nonprofits, and nonprofits are a business too. And so while we may look in businesses at business development and creating the programs, the same thing happens in nonprofits, that you have to respond to the needs of your clientele or the community and look for where there's a programmatic gap and you could be serving something, and always be mindful of how you can be adding value. And that comes with relationships and being relationship focused. So we spent then a lot of time just in that. I would say, Paul, when I think back, that was probably what we were doing a lot of, establishing the business, launching it, going through what you said, and the training was in April, and May coming back and using the time May to September to really hone in on our vision, mission, purpose statements. As you said, working with their trusted allies for feedback, because you may think that they are the best vision, mission, purpose statements, but if you try to describe it to other people and they question who you are, what you do, and how you serve, you've got to really rethink about the language that you're using. And that's why it's so important to get consensus too, and have delegates that you can talk to. But after we had gone through with the CPA and then with the business attorney, then we went, okay, now we got to go meet people. We got to go talk to people. We got to go see where the needs are. How do things work in Santa Clarita? So that was a lot of Q4 last year, and then a lot of Q1, right? And we started off the year like probably a lot of business owners that we heard. We were definitely on trending up, and then the pandemic came, and now we're into March. And in March, I think we felt for a day. I'll tell you why it was only a day. I think that we were shell shocked. We were, as we all get, flight, fright, freeze. And this is where I think we really ended up appreciating and respecting our leadership with Action Coach, because we saw Brad Sugars within one day turn around and say, everybody's up, we got to get up and we got to serve, we got to help, we got to serve. And I'm going to help you, and here's how we're going to do it. And Brad Sugars, if I think about all the stuff that he put out, it was amazing. It was truly awesome, and I mean that word. And so Paul and I then went, wait a minute, not only do we have this, but let's hold on. It was natural and organic. This is when we realized, and then we're going to share with you in a minute about what our journey through this pandemic and what it is that we've been able to recognize as our unique service and sales propositions. But Paul and his military background, obviously that can be crisis centric. And my experience in the last 20 years has been working in nonprofits that serve a population that has been traumatized or in crisis. That comes with then when you're in that culture, there's things that you learn about what you can do to respond to it in a more optimal way, of how to navigate through that. And when we took stock of that, that's when we started to then figure out ways in which we could help each other, and then share that with our clients. And starting, I think we started this within 2 weeks. I think the chamber had, within 2 weeks of the close down, the stay-at-home orders, maybe within a week and a half actually, that the chamber had put out something, a webinar, and that we were on that webinar. So I don't know, Paul, with you, think back to, is that what your assessment is of leading up until when the pandemic started? And
Yeah, we were on a good path forward, and then the pandemic hit, and then as you were stating, I mean, we were just shocked, thinking, okay, a number of businesses are going to be shut down. It's certainly going to have an impact on us because businesses, when a crisis hit, they always want to preserve cash. And so from our own business standpoint, we knew that that was going to have an impact on our growth. Uh, but we thought that we can still contribute and certainly fulfill some of our passion in giving back to the community by taking a lot of what Brad Sugars did in terms of webinar uh, content and tailoring it to Santa Clarita and how it impacted businesses here. So I mean, we had no experience in terms of webinars, doing anything on video. All our previous contact was one-to-one or in group workshops, face-to-face. So that's one way that we had to pivot. And Lisa talked about, this whole concept of crisis management and how do you get through it. I had over 12 months at the Marine Corps Staff College doing nothing but campaign planning and breaking down plans into smaller plans that you could then execute. Same with, I went to a 6-month school with the Army just on how do you make decisions and breaking decisions down into smaller groups. Extremely important during a crisis management phase. And the first thing that came out of all of that training, as well as what Brad Sugars was putting out and many of the other thought leaders that we saw dealing with the pandemic, is that you have to transform the way that you communicate. You have to be able to adapt to a different environment and a different mode of communicating and still touch all your key stakeholders. You can't let that pass by. So whether it's not only your own team that works for you, but you have to touch your clientele, you have to touch the vendors that support you, you have to touch the community at large to let them know that you're still in business or how you're dealing with business during this. So communication really became part of the central focus of the webinars that we initially kicked out. And then we evolved to how do you change your marketing approach and dealing with clientele. You have to be much more sensitive. You may have to be more liberal on some of your payment terms associated with it because everybody was being impacted by the pandemic. And most important, though, not only for the team and the additional stakeholders, you had to remain positive. You had to have a positive attitude that you're going to be able to get through this type of crisis and see the other end, even though we weren't certain when that end was. But in planning, you always make assumptions. And so we wanted to put together a planning document that any business could use, whether you were small or large. It's on our website. We broke the pandemic down into 4 phases. And look, it's been fairly accurate throughout the time period of the pandemic. So phase 1 was the lockdown. Phase two is the initial opening until we got testing in place and then really determining whether or not the pandemic's going to spike or not. We're in phase three now, and phase three is going to remain in place until we get the vaccine to the general population at large. And phase four will be once that occurs. And so the good news is we have enough knowledge about the pandemic now that probably by March, certainly by April, the general population will be administered the vaccine. And you'll start to see some return to business normalcy. Won't be the same normalcy as the past, but it will be a return to some business normalcy, likely starting at the beginning of the third quarter of 2021.
Hmm.
Lisa, there's other stuff we put on that COVID resource page that's really instructional to our audience. Maybe talk
Yes.
through some of that.
Yes, including what you just mentioned, as you said, and just to piggyback on that, in our experience again in working with crisis management, and quite frankly, I take stock in the work that I did with the YWCA, and I was the senior director there, and the YWCA is the largest domestic violence program and services in the country. And what I remembered from those domestic violence managers was how important it was for them to be working with the clients in regards to their imaginary toolbox and their toolkit and what it is that they could start to think about when they open that up. What is it that you need to have to be ready and that you can manage through this particular crisis? And that coupled with what Paul created, when we are swimming in limitations, and there's been so many limitations this year
Mm,
because it started with the pandemic, but as we all know, it was compounded by others, layered upon layered. It's so important to have a visual, and most of us are visually driven, to have a visual on what you can do. So it may feel like, and there's truth to that, of all the things you can't do, but there's a lot of things you can do. And this is a document that can help you see that personally and professionally and through the phases what you can be doing. The other things that we established early on was we found a great visual on LinkedIn that was very helpful, again, on our COVID-19 resource page at onetruenorthcoach.com. And it's a image of circles, and it starts with who do I want to be during COVID-19, and then it has phases in which you can, it's language, it's naming language of where you're at, how you're feeling, how you can get to ultimately more of a growth mindset with that. And it's not something to be used as a judgment and, oh, I should be over here. It becomes again another visual. And I said this recently with Paul working with other clients. I saw a great special recently, and there was a trainer who said, if you can't name it, you can't tame it. And I've been fortunate enough to work with psychologists for about 20 years. So I've learned the power of language and how important it is to identify how you're feeling, to help language with other people, how you can make your way through phases. And we use that with our clients to talk to their teams. Hey, this is a great visual that you can look at. I know I use it with our family. I have the document up in our kitchen to say, okay, where are you at today? How are you feeling? If someone else is in another zone that is going towards growth, you can ask them, well, how did you get there? What are some of the things that you did that helped you? But it really becomes an opportunity to work with team and people. And then the other thing that you'll see on the COVID-19 resource page is a visual in which you're going to see a sun out there. You may look at it as a sunset or a sunrise, but it's a sun in the horizon. There's a road. And we created that image because we realized that, and this came out of COVID, I'll tell we both know this. There's a whole bunch of things you can't do, right? But most businesses, they know, they had the subject matter expertise product that they could deliver. It was well received. They're able to continue to grow it. They then get really concentrated in operations and producing that product or that service. They spend 70 to 80% of their time in operations, and it's 5, 10, 20 years later. And when we say, well, what's your vision? What my vision? What is that? Well, what, and then what's your purpose? Why does the business exist? Uh, Okay, what's your mission? Yeah, we have one. What is it? I'm not sure what it is. I don't, well, maybe it's on our website. maybe parts. Okay, so we started to talk about, you know what you can do, and you know what would be a great thing to do now and get you ready for when we are in the recovery phase of this. You can go back and look at your commitment statements. And so you're going to see a visual in which we were able to say, okay, always start with purpose. What's your purpose? What's your why? Why are you doing this? Whether it's a project or your business. And then you have your compass, and compass is significant to us because of our business with One True North, helping you find your way. But compass also represents your values, your points of culture. So you've got your compass that's going to help you in your direction. And then the sun that you see is your vision. That's where you're headed, where you're going. And your road that you get there is your mission. How are you going to do it? And then you're going to see a little person on that roadway, and that's you. That's the messenger. And what we talk about is how powerful it can be when you meet somebody or you're refreshing someone on your business and you're able to articulate why you exist, your values, where you're headed, and how you're going to get there. Those are natural marketing mechanisms for your message. And so that's why we created it, again, because most people are visual. And we knew that that was something that we can do during this time that makes a huge impact for long-term sustainability. So that's you'll find that. And then you know what, Paul, I'm mindful of the other visual that we created is that developed over COVID was, oh boy, smarter goals. And I actually feel confident now saying we're goal specialists, and that's because this has been such an area of concentration. You know, let's talk about, and I'll now hit that back over to you in regards to our planning and what we were able then to break down in our quarterly planning, because in a time in which thinking about a year, I understand a lot of business owners and organizational leaders would say, I'm just trying to figure out the moment. I don't know
Right.
how to figure out a year. Well, let's
Yeah.
look at the next 90 days. What can we do to help you survive the next 90 days? So, thoughts about that?
Yeah, this is so important conceptually as a business owner. And again, it doesn't matter if you're a sole proprietor or if you're running a mid-sized business with 250 employees and doing $100 million a year. This is something that you should be doing as a discipline, and that's planning. So if you don't have your goals established for 2021, what is it that you want to accomplish by this time next year? Then that's something that you need to get after. If you don't have a budget in place that's going to get you through next year, that's something that you need to get after. And it's really important that you tie these physical goals that you're conceptualizing to some type of resources that you're going to exhaust in trying to achieve them. We find a lot of businesses don't do that. So in terms of your planning, you ought to be looking at where are we going to be at the end of 2021? What are the resources we have to exhaust to get there? And then break it down by quarter and focus on, if I want to achieve these goals by the end of 2021, what do I have to do in the first quarter to get to that end state for 2021? And then we ask that you reach out a little bit further and always look at your forecast. What is it that you think that you can accomplish by the end of 2022? And that you have numbers that back that up. And once you start thinking through of that, it helps you develop the strategies to achieve those, either your top level or your bottom level numbers that are required to see your own business scale or grow. But the process itself becomes really important. And so when Lisa says that we're specialists, look, we are experts at defining resources necessary to achieve your goals on an annual basis. We can help you do that. Not only that, but we're also experts in goal formation and goal development. So when we do these things with you, we actually start with, what is it that you're trying to solve? What are the problems that you have or your pain points in your business that you're trying to solve? And then how can you establish goals with subordinate objectives underneath those to achieve them, to develop whatever that solution is? So I mean, any one of your goals, we use an acronym that's been used for probably decades now, but it's worth its telling, and it's making each goal SMART. That's the acronym. So the goal has to be specific. It has to be measurable. So you understand what is it that we're trying to achieve, and do I have a way of knowing that I achieved it at the end of that time period? It has to be attainable. It just can't be something pie in the sky. So when we talk about attaching resources to it, we know that you're going to consume resources. Attainable means that you have the resources available, or you may have to invest resources to achieve that goal. And then is it relevant? Relevant meaning, is it really aligned with what your vision and mission is? And are you truly developing this goal and trying to achieve this goal in order to enhance whatever it is that your overall purpose statements are in meeting your vision and your annual mission? And then it has to be time framed. You have to have a discipline about it and saying that I expect to achieve these things during this time frame, and it helps you establish milestones and objectives uh, in achieving each one of those goals. So this is part of the stuff that we help you do it. We do it in a quarterly workshop, and that's done every quarter, and it's in the month preceding the quarter coming up. So we just had one for first quarter. We'll have another one. We're doing this through the Chamber of Commerce right now. We're engaged with them to perform these. So if you're a chamber member, you should take advantage of this. If you're not a chamber member, you ought to look at joining the chamber because they have a lot of programs that are dedicated to helping the small business community.
Yeah, and
So
Paul,
that kind of helps with that. Yeah.
yeah, and to add on to that, I think we've also developed, we have this, there's the SMART and then the smarter approach where we emphasize also being encouraging and rewarding in your goal setting and with you and your teams. And then, I painted that picture verbally that people can see on the COVID-19 resource page, the vision, mission, purpose. What I didn't say really quick is the goals. And you're
Mhm.
going to see on there the goals. And we like to tell people those are really progress pillars. So a lot of people just can be, if they're high achievers, they want to set a goal, achieve the goal, set a goal, achieve the goal. What we've been told, and I think was enlightening to us, and it made us feel really good that part of what we're able to do with people is to align their goals with their vision so that those are your progress pillars. Those are like if you're on that highway and you'll see in that visual, that's your mission. The progress pillars of the goals are the direction signs. So they're telling you if you're on the right track going towards your vision or not. And the goals really need to be anchored to that vision for them to be meaningful and for you, quite frankly, to be maximizing your potential and maximizing the potential of your team. So that's why we feel it's been this muscle that we had muscle before in it, but man, did we get a workout in COVID in the last year with and it's one of the funnest things to do, quite frankly, Paul, is when we are in a team setting, when we're going through our workshops and we're with other people and you see other business owners
Yeah.
asking questions to other business owners, peers, saying, well, now, how would you make that more specific? How would
Yeah.
you make that more measurable? That's really neat to see. And it's kind of, it becomes an art when you're looking at the levels in which you have to keep on asking and refining. And we believe in keeping that art up and focusing and digging deep because there is a science to number one goal setting. So the more that you set goals, the more that you then write down the goals so that you have got them clear and they're smarter, the more likely that you will achieve the goals. So this isn't just something that, it's a feel good. It actually creates impact and positive change when you're diligent about the process, a special process. The other things I know that we're coming up on our end time, Paul, but when we reflect back, I'm mindful of those things that we've learned through COVID that we've shared. And then in and of ourselves, some of the things we've shared regarding our unique selling and service propositions. So we've talked about our distinct way in which we've created a way to navigate through the pandemic that you can find on our website. when Paul and I talk about Action Coach, they actually are subject matter experts in the small to medium sized business. And that's something that they're very passionate about because Brad Sugars and leadership really felt that that's where there's the greatest need. A lot of businesses, as I said, they start because of the goodwill of the business owner or the talent or gift that they have, but they don't know anything about business. Well, that's why we're here. That's what we're passionate about and want to help. And then the other thing that we realized that we were able to maximize is our cross-sector approach. You know, when the business background that Paul has in regards to what he did post-military, service background, I was fortunate enough to work for Nestle and Disney for almost a decade in regards to business, and then worked nonprofit executive management 20 years. Paul has his MBA finance. I have my MPA public administration, so I have a public sector academic background. So when we looked at all that, we thought, you know something, we have this distinct way that we've developed. No one would have asked for this, what we've gone through. Um, we're still going through it. So we know that when we, you know, Happy New Year to all of you, that there's some really dark and hard times going on. And we also know this, it's always darkest before the dawn, but there will be a dawn. And we want to be there for you. We want to help you through it. We're here for you. We will continue to offer a free business diagnostic, and you can go to our website at onetruenorthcoach.com. That's an opportunity for us to send you a business background questionnaire with really good questions, and for free for Paul and I to sit down with you for 60 to 90 minutes and ask you more questions. And you can walk away, there's no strings attached. You may never want to engage with us again, but we really believe we make a commitment and a promise that every single time that you engage with us, you walk away with value, and it's better, you leave better than when you came. And so that you'll have something, a roadmap, or at least a thought process you can go into to help you navigate through these times. So we're here for you. We will continue to be here for you. And we wish you all the best to you and your family. Happy New Year for 2021. We will survive this. We will be together when we thrive, and we will do it together. So those are some of my closing thoughts, Paul. What about you?
Yeah, I think I just want you to imagine 2021. It's really going to be a split year. It's the first half of the year is still dealing with and navigating through the pandemic, both personally and professionally in your business. The second half of the year is going to be an explosive economic activity. And it's something that you should position yourself for in the first half of the year. Take advantage of this time. Time is a precious resource, but we can assure you that there will be so much pent up demand come third quarter of 2021 that if you aren't positioning your business today to take advantage of that, you're squandering an opportunity because it will appear. And then the other thing I just want to talk about a little bit before we close is just an expression of gratitude. You know, anytime a business starts up, you rely on other people to help you with that. And so we certainly have received many people helping us in gracious ways of either spreading our name or giving us networking opportunities, uh, putting us in front of other people so that we can broadcast our own brand and some of our offerings. And so I wouldn't want this year of reflection to go by without expressing gratitude to, and we won't name them, but so many people that have helped us both professionally and personally over this last year uh, to get our business up and running, which is truly something that we're very passionate about doing and helping others, especially during this pandemic period.
Yes.
So that's what I wanted to say. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of stuff that you can gain from us. We write a weekly article. It most often appears in the Signal. You can take a look at that. We have a weekly video that's on leadership and best business practices. That comes across on social media, both LinkedIn and Facebook, and we put it on Instagram now too. And you can find all these resources or directions to those resources on our webpage. Again, that's onetruenorthcoach.com.
Yes. And gratitude to you, Paul, for doing this business with your sister. So I'll end on that note. Thank you very much for being my business partner.
Yeah, thanks to both. Happy New Year's, folks.
Happy New Year.
We hope to see you in the new year.